Let's talk through his acts first of all. He was on HMAS Armidale. It was going down. He was shot as he was trying to help free some of the life vessels there, but instead of trying to get out, he only focused on defending some of his mates.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. He, from all reports, launched a number of life rafts for his shipmates, and when he had the chance to get away, he didn't. One of his shipmates said that he was wounded, but he went back to his gun, strapped himself to the Oerlikon gun, and continued to fire. And the last sighting of him was as the ship went down, still strapped to his gun, firing at the Japanese aircraft. So a remarkable act of bravery from a young man.
So you've got these aircraft overhead dropping bombs and firing on the vessel. You've also got, I think there was a torpedo that hit it as well. He knew what he was going into when he went to this gun. I think it was a 20mm cannon, and strapped himself to it. He wasn't even supposed to be the one firing it. He was the loader, or whatever the technical term is. He knew what he was doing here, and he wasn't going to come out of this.
I think that's right, Tom, and I think you're right also to say that it wasn't even his primary job. I mean, he wasn't the guy normally manning the gun. He was the loader. He was the guy that made sure that the ammunition was stacked and racked and placed into the gun for the person that was aiming it and firing it. So he was doing something he wasn't trained to do. He was just doing something that he knew he had to do to save the lives of those of his shipmates who were in the water and being strafed.
When you read about his story, so young as well, I mean, his whole life ahead of him, and him sacrificing that, you wonder why there's been so much debate around awarding the Victoria Cross or having the recommendation. Is this just about how high the bar is, how difficult it is to get evidence, definitive evidence, particularly in wars so long ago?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. I think the Victoria Cross is our nation's highest award. And we often say here that, there have been many, many people who have earned the Victoria Cross and haven't received it, but no one who has been awarded the cross has never not earned it. And I think in this case, it's been about just trying to make sure that all of the evidence that was available over time, a number of competing claims, whether or not the right people were spoken to at the time, whether it was officers or whether the ratings that were in the water, just making sure over time that it was the right decision. And certainly here at the Australian War Memorial, we really welcome the recommendation that's going to go forward to the Queen for his awarding of the Victoria Cross, and hope that it stands as an inspiration to a country that's faced with its own triumphs or challenges right now. This should be an inspiration to many of us that an ordinary seaman in this case, but an ordinary young man, was capable of an extraordinary act of bravery on behalf of others.
We don't have vision of a lot of our wars, the First World War, Second World War, not much of it of Australians. We can see that incredible portrait behind you of Teddy Sheean strapped to that gun, wounded. It really is an evocative a piece of art from that time. But what does this mean for other potential Victoria Cross recommendations? This process was one where it seems as though the Australian government, instead of sort of saying, well, there's not enough proof, and the process has sort of ended there, thought, no, how can we come out on the positive side of this? What will this mean for possible other awards in the future, do you think?
Well, I think that people will always continue to advocate for acts of bravery where they've been recorded by history and where people don't think that due recognition has been given to the individuals concerned. But I think Teddy Sheean's case is unique. I mean, he quite clearly did something remarkable, and the system, the government, the people, his shipmates, the Royal Australian Navy, the Australian Defence Force knew he did something remarkable, and indeed honoured him with the first, ship, a HMAS, the Collins-class submarine that was named after Teddy Sheean, is the first time an ordinary seaman has been so honoured by the Royal Australian Navy. So I think people have known for a very long time that his acts were quite extraordinary, but it was just making sure that the evidence was presented and gathered and interrogated, in such a way that that award would stand up. And clearly the Prime Minister believes it has, and he's made that recommendation.
As you say, the first award to a regular seaman, is there a reason for this? I mean, I suppose when you're talking about awards going out to those in the army, you have close hand-to-hand combat, you have these split-second moments where people decide that they're going to make a sacrifice. A lot of the time when you're on the water, it's fighting from a distance perhaps and people simply loading shells in. Is that a reason for the lack of awards? Will it change perhaps in the future?
Look, I think the Navy have always said that there have been a significant number of events, actions taken by members of the Royal Australian Navy that have not been given sort of the appropriate level of credit. It must be very hard, of course, when you're a member of a crew and there's a number of you on board a ship, well over 100 in the case of HMAS Armidale, to single out a particular individual to receive the award. So I think that would ordinarily work against them. But here in the Australian War Memorial, we actually have a number of George Crosses that have been awarded to members of the Royal Australian Navy and the Volunteer Reserve during the Second World War for some of their mine disposal work. So where the act can be attributed to an individual, I think the Navy is very, very determined to make sure that individual is appropriately rewarded and recognised.
We'll just show our viewers finally that picture of Teddy Sheean that is just behind you, Matt Anderson. This is a close-up of him strapped to that 20mm cannon. There's an aircraft coming in, a Japanese bomber, of course. You can see the wound there as well. So evocative of what he was up against and what he knew he was doing at the time. A significant day, of course, for Australian defence, and no doubt you'll have a few more visitors wanting to see that painting in the flesh. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers.